Hello and welcome, I'm Tom Porteus and you are watching The World Report. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. South Korea's President Yoon Suk Yeol faces parliamentary moves to impeach him after he announced martial law last night, which was lifted within just 6 hours. Amid the ongoing dilemma between Hezbollah and Israel over a ceasefire, the IDF launches fresh attacks on Lebanon. The International Criminal Court takes action against Israeli PM following ceasefire violations. Ukraine pushes for a full NATO membership. They insist that this will pave the way to peace. However, Russia claims that the membership is a possible threat. The US-China trade war escalates. The United States announces export reconstructions on computer chip making. In response, China imposes ban on exports of key chemicals. Joe Biden becomes the first United States president to visit Angola. He announces a $1 billion humanitarian aid package to the country. The Philippines accuses China of firing water cannons and sidewiping a government vessel on Wednesday. Beijing calls Manila's accusations bogus. South Korea has witnessed a night of intense political drama. The country went to sleep under martial law and woke up to its rappel. The president now faces intense backlash. His countrymen want him to resign, and the opposition is set to move a motion of impeachment in the parliament. Here is a report.
Political drama unfolded in South Korea last night when it went to sleep under martial law and woke up to its rappel. On Tuesday night, South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol declared emergency martial law, accusing the opposition of being anti-state forces.
친애하는 국민 여러분, 저는 북한 공산 세력의 위협으로부터 자유 대한민국을 수호하고 우리 국민의 자유와 행복을 약탈하고 있는 파렴치한 종북 반국가 세력들을 일거에 척결하고 자유 헌정 질서를 지키기 위해 비상계엄을 선포합니다.
Soon after, more than 280 troops backed by 24 helicopters arrived at Parliament to lock down the site. CCTV footage from the South Korean parliament showed troops breaking windows to enter its premises. What then unfolded in Seoul was dramatic. 190 lawmakers defied rifle-carrying soldiers to force their way into the parliament. The MPs then quickly voted against the move.
또 한 가지, 계엄의 해제. 계엄의 해제는 대통령은 제2조 2항 또는 제3항에 따른 계엄 상황이 평상 상태로 회복되거나 국회가 계엄 해제를 요구한 경우에는 지체 없이 계엄을 해제하고 이를 공고하여야 한다 이렇게 되어 있습니다. 그래서 제가 결재를 해서 계엄 해제 요구 통지서에 결재를 했습니다. 지금 대통령실로 보내는 과정에 있습니다. 그래서 그게 가면
President Yoon was left with no choice but to retract his decision and call off the military in a television address at 4:30 a.m.
조금 전 국회의 계엄 해제 요구가 있어 계엄 사무에 투입된 군을 철수시켰습니다. 바로 국무회의를 통해 국회의 요구를 수용하여 계엄을 해제할 것입니다.
The U-turn prompted jubilation among flag-waving protesters outside Parliament who had braved freezing temperatures to keep vigil through the night in defiance of Yoon's martial law order.
일단 좀 되게 충격적이었고요. 아무래도 저희 나라가 1980년대 그렇게 5.18도 있었고 그런 여러 가지 사건을 거친 상황에서도 이렇게 계엄을 발표할 수 있다라는 사실에서 충격을 좀 많이 받았던 것 같아요.
Yoon's political future is now at stake as the protesters call for his resignation. Meanwhile, South Korean opposition carried out a demonstration on the steps of the National Assembly, calling for President Yoon's impeachment.
윤석열은 내란과 군사 반란은 물론 개헌법 위반 등 위헌과 위법 행위를 통해
이 국회를 에워싸 주지 않으셨다면 개헌군이 국회 본관을 대머리판으로 유리창을 깨고 창틀을 넘어 침입했을 때도 온몸 던져 총알을 맞을 각오로 싸웠던 시민들이 있었기 때문에 국회의원들이 체포당하지 않았고 본회의장을 뺏기지 않아서 합헌적으로 계엄 해제 의결을 할 수 있었던 것입니다.
The opposition holds a large majority in the 300-member parliament. It needs only a handful of defections from the president's party to secure the two-thirds majority needed to pass the impeachment motion. With reactions against Yoon coming from his own party members, who described his attempt as tragic, the political future of the South Korean president is now in grim danger. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from North America. The US Supreme Court will hear a challenge to a Tennessee law. This law bans medical treatments like puberty blockers or hormone therapy for transgender minors. This decision in this case could be one of the most vital ones because similar laws have been passed in 23 other Republican-led states. This issue has become a major topic of debate among conservatives. A Stellantis joint venture with Samsung SDI has secured a commitment from the US government. A loan of $7.54 billion will be allocated to build 2 electric vehicle battery plants in Kokomono in the state of Indiana. The project is led by Star Plus Energy LLC. It is expected to create at least 2,800 jobs at the plants and additional employment at a nearby park for parts supply companies. Zhang Guowen, a Chinese national living in California, has been arrested. He has been accused of illegally sending weapons and ammunition from the US to North Korea. According to the Justice Department, Wen allegedly exported at least 2 shipments of weapons, firearms, ammunition, and other items. Reportedly, nearly $2 million were transferred by North Korea for the transactions. United States President-elect Donald Trump is considering Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for Defense Secretary. This follows a scrutiny of Pete Hegseth's nomination. Hegseth, a former Fox News host, faces sexual assault allegations and questions about his qualifications. DeSantis was seen as a potential successor who could advance Trump's agenda without the baggage. Chad Cronista, President-elect Donald Trump's first pick to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration, has withdrawn from consideration. The sheriff of Hillsborough County, Florida, stated that there was still important work to be done in his county, especially in the city of Tampa. He expressed gratitude for the nomination and support, but decided to remain sheriff for the time being. A Quebec man, Jong-Hun Lee, was sentenced to over 2 years in prison. He attempted to smuggle over 1,000 fake documents into Canada, including permanent resident cards and driver's licenses. Lee pleaded guilty to charges on November the 18th after an investigation by the Canada Border Services Agency. He was caught importing 509 counterfeit cards for permanent resident cards. Tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East as ceasefire violations and airstrikes rock Gaza and northern Israel. Amid mounting violence, uneasy calm hangs over Lebanon's border town of Metula, with fears of renewed conflict threatening the fragile truce with Hezbollah. Here's the latest on the unfolding crisis.
Tensions boil over in the Middle East as Israeli forces unleash fresh airstrikes in northern Gaza, hitting Kamal Adwan Hospital and a school in Beit Lahia packed with displaced families. The relentless attacks have left dozens dead in Gaza City and Rafah, pushing the region further into despair. Heartbreaking scenes unfolded as families carried loved ones into the hospital. A civil defense spokesperson in Gaza made a desperate plea.
قائم حتى الآن ولذلك نناشد العالم إلى ضرورة التدخل لحماية المواطنين في قطاع غزة قبل فوات الأوان.
The violence isn't limited to Gaza. In northern Israel, near the Lebanese border town of Metula, tensions simmer as a fragile truce with Hezbollah holds. Aerial footage shows the uneasy calm overshadowed by the threat of renewed conflict. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz issued a stark warning, saying any collapse of the truce would see Israel target the Lebanese state itself, blurring the line between Hezbollah and Lebanon.
כרגע אנחנו בהפסקת אש, אני מציין, אנחנו בהפסקת אש, לא בסיום המלחמה. יש לנו יעד ברור להחזיר את התושבים, לשקם את הצפון. אנחנו אוכפים ביד ברזל את הפסקת האש הזאת, פועלים נגד כל הפרה, קלה כחמורה.
In the backdrop of this crisis, diplomatic efforts are heating up. Lebanese leaders are urging Washington and Paris to rein in Israeli aggression after a series of alleged ceasefire violations. But Israel is standing firm, accusing Hezbollah of testing the limits of the truce. In the West Bank, doctors are still reeling from the aftermath of the Israeli raid. Hospital staff in Tubas recount the horror as Israeli forces demanded the handover of bodies while holding medics at gunpoint.
قاموا بتكتيفي والضرب علي وضربوني على خصرتي في رجليهم والاعتداء علي والسب والشتم وبعد ذلك طلب مني اللي هو الضابط بأن أقوم بتسليم الجثث من المستشفى إنه أنا أحضرهم من الثلاجة وأتيهم إلى ساحة المستشفى.
As violence spreads across borders, global eyes are on the International Criminal Court, which recently issued arrest warrants for Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu and others over alleged war crimes in Gaza. ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan is now under scrutiny himself amid misconduct allegations. As attacks on schools, hospitals and civilians intensify, the human toll of this crisis grows. With no clear path to peace, the region remains on the brink of a larger conflict. From Gaza's broken streets to Lebanon's tense borders, the Middle East stands on the edge of yet another devastating chapter. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from Europe. French lawmakers are set to vote on Wednesday to oust Prime Minister Michel Barnier's government, marking first such move in 60 years. With the far-right National Rally and left-wing parties united, the government is expected to fall, despite Barnier's confidence. The political crisis comes amid France's struggle with a massive budget deficit. Economists warn that while bond investors may not react harshly, the political instability will harm businesses and consumers. The collapse will deepen the EU's challenges as France and Germany both face internal issues. Georgia's public ombudsman, Levan Osolani, has accused the police of torturing people arrested during the process against the government's decision to suspend EU accession talks. Osolani reported that detainees sustained serious injuries to their faces, eyes and heads, suggesting police used excessive force. The protests sparked by the government's halt on the EU talks and rejection of EU funding until 2028 have drawn intense criticism. Tensions are rising, with opposition accusing the government of steering Georgia closer to Russia, while demonstrators demand a rerun of the controversial October elections. The Prince and Princess of Wales joined King Charles in a grand ceremony on Tuesday to welcome Sheikh Tamim bin Mohammed Al Thani of the Emir of Qatar, marking the start of the two-day state visit to the UK. While Queen Camilla was absent due to health concerns, she joined later for a private lunch and the evening's state banquet at Buckingham Palace. The royal couple took part in the Horse Guards Parade ceremony, with Kate making one of her rare public appearances following her cancer treatment. A Russian spy ring allegedly surveilled a US military base in Germany, targeting soldiers training on the Patriot air defense system. Bulgarian nationalists Katerina Ivanova, Vanya Gerbavova and Timur Ivanov are accused of spying under Russian agent Jan Marsalek's direction. Prosecutors say the group used IMSI catchers to track soldiers' locations vital to Russia's invasion strategy. The defendants deny the charges and are standing trial in London. The British Museum is reportedly in talks with Greece to resolve the long-standing dispute over the Parthian marbles, with discussions moving towards a potential agreement. UK officials have hinted at the possibility of the ancient sculptures being loaned to Greece as Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed support for a deal. Greece has long maintained that the marbles were looted by Lord Elgin in the early 19th century, while the UK insists they were legally acquired. The dispute, which has lasted over 200 years, has garnered global attention, with public opinion in the UK shifting towards restitution. In Donja Jablanica, Bosnia, locals have put up their banner denouncing authorities for their lack of support following deadly floods in October. The floods, caused by heavy rain and a landslide, claimed 19 lives in the village. 2 months later, residents say they've received no help from the state, relying instead on charitable donations. The local government allocated funds for repairs, but the financial aid is yet to materialise. Peaceful protests continue each week as the village remains largely abandoned and residents struggle to rebuild their lives with limited support. A trade war has ramped up between the US and China, with both sides imposing sanctions on the other, chip minerals. The tensions come as President-elect Donald Trump promises to impose a tariff on China once he takes office. Here is the report.
An ongoing trade war between China and the United States has stepped up in the last 24 hours. The US has cracked down on the Chinese semiconductor industry after Joe Biden announced a curb on US exports to 140 Chinese chip companies. The outgoing US president is aiming to limit China's ability to access and produce chips for potential AI or military use, which could threaten US national security. A spokesperson for the Chinese foreign minister hit back at the US.
尊重市场经济规律和公平竞争原则，并将采取必要措施，坚决维护自身安全和发展利益。
While it remains to be seen if there is a real threat to America's security, China has hit back following the third crackdown from the states in 3 years. China has banned the export of critical minerals, gallium, germanium, and antimony to the US. They have widespread military applications. This latest escalation in the trade conflict comes just a month and a half before Donald Trump takes office. He's already threatened to impose tariffs on all Chinese goods on January the 20th when he takes office. China is the third largest trading partner to the US, and with volatility over their current trade relations, the knock-on impact geopolitically could be seismic. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from the Indo-Pacific region. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te visited Tuvalu to seek international support. Taiwan claims to be a sovereign nation. However, China asserts its claim on Taiwanese territory and restricts any official exchanges with it. Ching-te's trip follows a visit to the Marshall Islands, where President Hilda Heine reaffirmed ties with Taiwan. Tuvalu and Marshall Islands are among the 12 nations that recognize Taiwan. Hong Kong's government is planning to transform the northern border area. The government has taken over village lands for the purpose of cross-border infrastructure and its North Metropolis projects. The objective also includes development of a massive tech zone in the region. These ambitious plans for urbanization are raising concerns for the environmentalists and locals. A High People's Court of Vietnam has denied the appeal made by a real estate tycoon, Trong My Lang. It has upheld the decision of a death sentence for the embezzlement of $12 billion. The case raises concerns on the potential impact the country's economy might face. The court also stated that the sentence could be reduced to life imprisonment if she pays 75% back of the stolen money. Malaysia and South Thailand is witnessing the worst floods in decades. More than 300,000 people are being affected in southern Thailand. Thousands of people are displaced and confined to temporary shelters. The government has allocated $1.4 million in relief per province. Pattani, Natawat, Songkhla and Yatla were the worst hit provinces. A magnitude 5.6 earthquake has struck the northern Philippines. It quivered Banguay, a northern town in the Ilocos province. The quake occurred at a depth of 37 kilometers, where there were no reported fatalities and property damage. The Philippines, located on the Ring of Fire, frequently experiences earthquakes due to surrounding volcanoes. Japan's military deployed a surveillance plane and a Navy ship on December the 3rd. This follows after spotting a Russian Kilo-class submarine 50 kilometers off Konaguayan Island near Taiwan. The submarine moving northeast, a naval ship, did not enter Japan's territorial waters. Japan remains cautious about the increasing military activity and the combined operations by China and Russia around its aerospace and waters. United States President Joe Biden has become the first US president to visit Angola. This underlines US ambitions in Africa amid significant investment from China, security and trade. Welcoming Biden to the country, Angolan President Lourenço has said that the visit marks an important turning point in the relationship between the two countries. Let's have a look at the report.
President Joe Biden arrived in Angola on Monday, on his first and only trip to sub-Saharan Africa. Biden's choice of Angola is significant, and it signals a dramatic improvement in relations between the two nations. The visit intends to underline US ambitions in Africa amid significant investment from China. Welcoming the US president, Angolan president has said that this visit is a turning point in the relationship between the two countries. During the visit, President Biden announced more than $1 billion in humanitarian assistance to Africa.
I'm announcing over $1 billion in new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity.
The United States government is backing a new 1,300 km railway project linking an Angolan port with mining areas in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. Angola was firmly in the political orbit of China and Russia after independence from Portuguese colonial rule in 1975. However, since taking power in 2017, Lourenço has steered it towards closer relations with the US. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from the business world. After years of ignoring pleas to sign up for child protection schemes, the controversial messaging app Telegram has agreed to work with an internationally recognized body. The goal of this collaboration is to help stop the spread of child sexual abuse material. The Internet Watch Foundation is used by major online services to detect and remote CSAM and prevent its spread. Will collaborate with Telegram. Previously, Telegram had repeatedly refused to engage with the IWF or any similar scheme. Workers have fitted a reactor into the first nuclear power station to be built in Britain in 30 years. Hundreds of engineers and construction staff have worked for several days. They were lifting the 500-ton steel equipment into place. This work took place at Hinkley Point C near Bridgewater, Somerset. The 42.6 long unit is one of two reactors that will contain the nuclear train reaction, generating enough power for 6 million homes. The plant is expected to open in 2030. Some of the world's largest hedge funds have hired doctors, scientists, and analysts. These professionals provide expert insight into the prospects for pharmaceutical stocks. The hiring follows a significant share swings in pharmaceutical sector. This year, sharp stock movements have occurred as companies have reported financial results. Companies also updated investors on early and mid-stage drug studies. The head of a US Senate panel has harshly criticised the rising airline fees for luggage and seat assignments. He stated that carriers have been seeking new ways to extract more money from passengers. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who chairs the Permanent Subcontinental Committee on Investigations, has been convening a hearing titled "The Sky's the Limit." The hearing will feature executives from American Airlines, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, Spirit Airlines, and Frontier Airlines, who will testify about the rising fees. Chinese companies have been warned against purchasing US chips, with claims they are no longer safe. 4 of China's top industry associations issued rare coordinated responses, urging businesses to prioritize buying locally. The two nations have intensified economic targeting, raising tensions. This escalation comes as US President-elect Donald Trump prepares to return to the White House in January. The Royal Bank of Canada has reported fourth quarter profits exceeding analysts' expectations. The boost came from its acquisition of HSBC's domestic business this year and strong performance in its wealth management division. The $10 billion acquisition of HSBC's Canadian operations has enabled RBC to expand its retail business. This move added approximately 800,000 clients and boosted its mortgage corporate loan portfolios. And that's all we have time for. We will be back shortly with more news updates from across the world. Thank you.